Hey, welcome to another episode of Triple Play, and don't forget to like and subscribe and continue to support us. You can do that for as little as $3, so don't forget to check out that. Along the way, remember to support those that support us. You've got Resource One, Andy McCollum and his team at 636-458-1798, and CS Design, good old Chris and his team at 573-436-3717. Both of those guys are great. Their teams are awesome, and I highly recommend it. If you need their services, whether it be financial planning, estate planning, anything like that, give Andy and Steve a call on anything dealing with your computers and technology and small businesses. Give Chris and his team a call. That being said, we're excited about today's guest. Scott's going to join us hopefully somewhere along the episode. Apparently there were a lot of storms over the weekend and accidents over this holiday weekend, so he's been caught at work a little bit, but hopefully he'll jump in here in a little while. In the meantime, it's my joy to get to talk today and introduce our guest. We have the Booths, and they are with Penuel Camp. So Camp Penuel has been around for how long?
50 years. This is their 50th.
So that's why we got the 50 thing behind us.
Right.
All right. So 50 years. And Joy, you grew up there basically.
Yes, I did, and I'm going to date myself. I was the first camper, one of the first campers when I was 11, and then the next year from there on out, I was the dishwasher, the cabin cleaner, the picker-upper of trash, or whatever you want to call it, whatever they needed. I was right in there working with the rest of the folks.
Cleaning toilets.
Cleaning toilets, yep.
Oh, that's all that work's got to be done, right?
That's
so
right.
Somebody's got to do it.
That's right.
So, and then Larry, you came along somehow, and I heard a little bit of your story. I don't know how you guys all connect, so I'm interested to learn that. So, why don't you guys give us a little bit about your background? I don't know who I should start with. Maybe you, Larry, since you already mentioned. Give us a little bit about your background, a little bit about your testimony, how you guys met.
Okay.
And then we'll get with Joy how she grew up a little bit, and then she can maybe give us a little bit of the background of the camp.
Sure.
So, because I know it's your family, so
yes,
you can probably fill in a lot of the things there. So, sound good? We'll start with that. Good. So, Larry, tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay. I am the executive director at the camp, and of course, I married the president. So I'm the vice president. No, not the vice president. But I grew up in St. Louis. I grew up in the projects. My family is pretty poor. We come out of the projects into South St. Louis near Anheuser-Busch area. I grew up around there until I was 3rd grade. And my mom got sick. We moved out of the city for her health near Ironton. And I ended up going to school in Ironton. Joy and I met when we were in 4th grade. Mm-hmm. So that's where we became friends, but not real close friends. We knew each other with our regular high school, and we went up through. My mom passed away in 9th grade, so I ended up leaving Ironton, going to another school not far from there, and graduating. After that, well, during that time, I became a Christian and began to minister. When I was 14, I started preaching all over the area, and I heard about Joy's dad. And he had already started the camp, but he had written a book called Revelation for the Layman. And so all of my friends were reading that book, and I'm a big, end times buff. And so that book meant a lot to me. I studied it and got to meet Harry when I was younger. But I never worked for the camp, and after I graduated, I ended up coming to the camp when I was 18 or 19 during one of the summers, and working for a week at the camp. I had a friend that was there, so I just came and stayed with him and hung out. And so I got closer to the ministry. Joy had already left at that point, so she wasn't at the camp. So I'm pretty sure that was when I was 19. And then, I ended up going to Bible college and traveling and being youth pastor all over the country in different places, associate pastor in different places. And then my life had changed, and I knew I was coming back to Missouri, so I saw that Harry was sick on Facebook, and again, talking with Joy about coming and doing a video for the camp. So my company came in. We did a new video for the camp that summer. I left, went back to work in Maryland, and then I was looking to move to Missouri, And so I contacted Joy and the board and asked them about coming to work. And they hired me to the camp to kind of take Harry's place after he passed away, to raise money for the camp. And so gradually we did that, and I traveled around the city and places. And then I became the chaplain at the camp and started doing the ministry at the camp. And that next year, Joy and I started dating and got married at the end of 2012. And so since then, we've kind of changed how we do ministry at the camp. We do a lot of neat things. And I learned from other places where I was. And of course, being a youth pastor, that helped. And so,
a little bit. Being around kids, it always helps, right?
Ministering to youth is different than children. So I had to re-gear myself a little bit more for children. And so that's become very exciting. We've spent the last 11 years. Yeah, 11 years doing the ministry there, maybe a little bit longer. So it's been exciting. So that's kind of my road to Camp Penuel.
He forgot to mention my mom was his 4th grade teacher.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Fifth grade teacher.
Fifth grade teacher.
Yeah.
And we didn't hang out much. He left when we were in 8th grade, I believe.
9th, yeah.
Yeah, 8th or 9th grade. Yeah.
Yeah. I went to Lesterville, and then her mom was precious to me. So I really had a heart for the Dumas because at a time in my life when it was going crazy, she really ministered to me. And she didn't show her faith so much as she lived it in front of me, and very kind and tender person. And so when I came to work for the camp, she was still in the office at that time and coming and being part of the ministry. And so she got to help mentor me in the sense of just jumping headlong into Camp Penuel and leading that. And so it was exciting to be there until she had passed away. And so in the end, she was like my mom. So, and before she passed, Joy and I prayed with her, and she leaned over and pulled me close. She said, "Thank you for being part of Camp Penuel." And that meant all the world to me,
We were never an item in school. He always said I was too tall.
Well, the truth is I was too short.
No.
I always thought she was beyond me being able to date. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. So, but you guys knew each other growing up a little bit. So that's awesome that you were able to watch each other and get to know each other a little bit and have some relationship because you were in the same school to some degree and the same circles to some degree. So yeah. And so, and then you show up, and for you grew up at the camp, right? So give us a little background. How did it start, and then how did that all? How was it growing up there?
A little quick history. My father was put on the doorsteps of an orphanage when he was 2, and that was back in that would have been 1935. So they had orphanages still back then in New Jersey, and he was not adopted till 6 years later. And, the folks would come and almost like going to a pet store, the cutest kid, people would come, potential parents, and he was always overlooked. And 6 years later, the Duma family adopted him. And he grew up, he was a little stinker. If today's age, he probably would have been in juvie maybe a couple times for some of the shenanigans he did. But his underlying thinking was always he was a throwaway kid. And he was saved in his early 20s. And he was a chaplain in the Navy. And fast forward to meeting my mom in Bible college in New Jersey, and she's from St. Louis. So they got married. They moved of all places to Ironton, Missouri.
So they went to Bible college in New Jersey. What Bible college? Oh, do you remember?
Lord.
It's a reform school, wasn't it?
No. Give me a minute and I'll think of it.
I know some that are up that way. You got Nyack up in New York there, but that's New York, not New Jersey.
Shelton.
Yeah. Okay.
Shelton. See, look at me. I remembered. Anyway, fast forward to when I was 4 years old, they took a church in Ironton, Missouri, population, less than 1,000 at the time, and out would have never thought. And my dad built the youth group because he was always interested in youth and making sure they felt loved and they knew the Lord. Because he always says when he was saved, that was the defining moment when he finally felt loved. Even though the Dumas, were loving parents, he didn't feel like a throwaway kid anymore. And the youth group grew actually for a very small town, and he was in the basement of the church, and he said, a still small voice said, start a free camp for kids. And he never looked back. He ran with it. He looked for land with no money. We lived in a parsonage. I think he made $100 a week. So he just couldn't go out and purchase anything. He looked for land. He looked for donors. He looked for inner city at-risk churches that could bring the kids. He just didn't look back. He moved forward the whole time. And there was some land we purchased on top of a mountain that was a former camp called Baptist Heights, and it has the shells of the buildings there. And so our first summer, actually, we spent busing. It was a small group, obviously, and I was one of the campers. We'd go up to the mountain. We'd have hot dog roast. We'd go to Sunset Rock. Then we would drive down to a local pool and we would swim. And everybody always heard the gospel. So the next year, a huge, beautiful campus, which is still ours today, opened up on Lake Killarney. And they had originally opened it to make a big profit for rich folks. The cabins looked like hotel rooms, and they were looking to, download it and get rid of it. And so the Lord provided the finances, the loan, and there it was. The next year, we started with the campus. We had 13 cabins originally, the lodge, and just a beautiful, beautiful lake and a swimming pool. So that's where it started. And it just grew from there. Every year, my dad was just tenacious and faithful to the Lord, and the Lord was faithful to the camp and still is today. And like I said, personally, my parents taught me that life isn't about me, and it's about other folks. And I didn't think for a minute, why my mom and I would go cabin to cabin and, clean a toilet or do whatever we needed to do. It was just out of love and out of God's love. So I worked there. Every position I worked there, and every position I worked there. I left Missouri for about a decade and moved and lived in various places, and I would go to college at night and then have other jobs to be able to support myself. But anytime I came home to see my mom and dad, I was always, hey, can you help us in the office? Can you help us here? So I was never, ever not involved with the camp. I lived in Germany for 4 years. I would fly home to see my mom and dad. Hey, while you're here, can you, help us coordinate the banquet? I'd be, oh, yes. Okay.
I traveled all the way from Germany to do this, right?
Yes. Like, hi, Dad. By the way, so I moved back for good, and I believe 98 back for good to Ironton, and started working for the camp full time again, working in development with my dad. We would go from place to place and fundraise, and I learned the donors and made those connections with them. He loved to fly. We would fly all over to meet folks. I mean, unnecessary. He liked to fly. Ironton is kind of quick story between Cape Girardeau and St. Louis. So we're about an hour and a half from each. So somebody donated my dad free plane tickets from Cape to St. Louis. So he would drive an hour and a half to Cape, get on his little free flight, fly to St. Louis for a couple hours, get back, fly to Cape, and then drive home. And I'd be like, that's so ridiculous, but they're free, and a donor gave it. So anyway, And I stayed, even when I started working at my current job, I stayed working with the camp all the time and became a board member. And then when my dad passed, they put the reins over to me, which was scary. I knew how my mom and dad lived, and as a child, seeing your parents, where's our next house payment? Where's our next vehicle? Where's our food? I didn't necessarily want to go through that, but what I did learn is God is faithful. He's just so faithful through everything and everything the camp's been through. And so we've been at it. I've been the board president for about 12 years. I thought, I can't do this alone. My dad wore 12 hats. So he had reached out after my dad had passed, a little bit after, and we were looking for somebody to take over and help fundraise and work with me. And we brought him into a board meeting. We hired him, and he runs the whole program. He helps raise funds, and he's streamlined a lot of things. But our one mission, is free camping and lead kids to the Lord. And that's the fun part. So here we are. I would have never thought in a million years that I would have been the head of it. I feel blessed and honored to just be able to serve the folks that we serve and the children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. And then, so you were gone at it for a while too. Was that the same time he was gone kind of from the area too? I was curious about that, if it was in a similar time period.
Yeah, he was gone from about 19 to, he came back after I had been back a decade already.
Okay.
So, yeah. All
right. And you were down, you said 7 years in Savannah?
Yeah, I was there. I was in Wisconsin for 6.5 years, Maryland for, I think, 7 or 8 years. Indiana. I youth pastored in a lot of different places. I'm missing some, I know, but so coming back, I'd already had some experience with leading youth to the Lord, and so it was a natural transition for me. It seemed like my life had all been equipping to come to Camp Penuel. So all of the from the pet peeves I had to the gifts I had inside of me. I lead worship. I do a lot of things, but to be able to lead children to the Lord was the most important part of Camp Penuel. We do everything we do. I mean, I cleaned toilets this summer. All of that's part of being able to stand in front of those kids and lead them to Jesus or to a decision towards the Lord. And we've been able to do that. And over 50 years, we've seen over 100,000 children come to camp for free, and we've seen probably around 75,000 children give their life to Jesus.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
That's awesome.
Right.
So I want to get into that, but also I have a couple more questions about you guys, because it is intriguing that you guys grew up kind of in the same area.
Yeah.
So did you have preconceived ideas about him prior to him coming back to work at Camp Penuel?
Yeah.
Tell it.
I'm going to tell it. In hindsight, a little, one of the things I noticed with him is he would be, let's get this new giant, slide. And I'd look up, I'm like, we deal with children, not teenagers. It's a little bit different demographic that he had to adjust to.
We got the slide.
Yeah, no, we weren't close in high school at all. What's very interesting, and I'm going to tell it, I was looking through my old yearbooks, and, at our age, in 8th grade, you take your yearbook and you just pass it around to whoever, and finally you get it back.
Everybody signed it, right? We did that back then, yeah.
He had signed it. I had no clue. And he basically said, "Dear Joy, what's up? We can never be together." I was like, I wasn't even asking this guy if we could be together, but I'm like, oh, good, there's another pot shot of my height.
I was trying to flirt with her because I was too short, and she was head and shoulders above all of us in 4th grade, 5th grade.
Yeah,
and then we all started to grow. But by 6th or 7th grade, when I wrote that, she was still taller than me, and I thought I would never have a chance to date her. Yeah. And so I was flirting with her in that way, but that was her her soft spot that she was too tall.
Yeah.
And so I just basically slammed her because of those words.
Yeah. He says flirt, I say slam.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, not at all. So it was interesting getting to know each other. We were both movie buffs, and that's kind of where, we started connecting. And then I was trying to teach him all the donors that we had because, I was trying to make that transition for him so he can develop a relationship with them. And it just kind of grew from there.
Lunches and our dinners with Mom and Joy, and we became closer and closer, and
knew started dating, hey?
Yeah.
We knew at that point we were supposed to be together, so.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Amazing. It kind of happened later in life too,
Right.
Yeah. So.
Right. So we didn't know each other and we didn't know each other.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
And I wasn't the best kid at that time either, so,
Well, I think
Christian when I was in 9th grade.
Yeah, he was, he has lots of stories about when he was a kiddo. Yeah.
He wasn't the model kid for your mom in 4th and 5th or 5th grade.
Yeah.
So.
She liked me, but I was a scoundrel at that time even, so.
Yeah.
Well, he had 9 brothers and sisters, and all his older brothers were probably not the best influence. So, yeah.
Well, come on in. You can join us. So, this has been interesting because these guys grew up by each other. Mm-hmm. Went to school. He had her mom in 5th grade.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
Okay. But they didn't start dating. So, how old were you guys when you started dating?
Oh, I was 47, 48.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
I swore I'd never get married again. I was going to forge my own way in life.
and so you got saved, you said, in 9th grade?
Yeah.
Okay. So how did that lead to becoming a youth pastor? Because obviously you felt a calling.
Yeah. In high school, well, in at that point, it'd been 9th grade. In between 8th and 9th grade, I knew I was going to a new school, and the Lord began to deal with me about ministering to kids in my high school. And so immediately I started out carrying my Bible to school. And eventually we started connecting with the Christian kids in school. And I was noticing some things about that. But I connected with a few truly Christian kids that were great, and got to started leading people to the Lord in high school, right in the classrooms. And then I started preaching all over the county in different areas in Missouri, and started a thing called not Youth for Christ, but it's been a while. Anyway, it was my high school ministry, and I ran for student council president. Won that the first year by like 91% of the vote. I ran a second year, and my teachers were saying, "Oh, don't do that, don't do that." And I wasn't done really doing my Christian club thing, and so we ran again and won with a greater amount of the vote. Like 95% of the kids voted for me. Then we started after school high school ministries, and we would meet in different churches in the area. So it grew and grew and grew until I ended up going to Bible college after that.
Where'd you go to Bible college?
I started at a place called Pastoral Training Institute in Arnold, Missouri.
Okay.
Which is no longer there. And then we ended up, with a friend of mine, we went to Lester Summerall School out in Indiana, in South Bend, called World Harvest Bible College, which later became Indiana Christian University. And so I finished my 4-year, and I'm working on my master's out of there still.
Did you do anything with Brooks Bible?
I don't think so.
I was just curious.
Is that in South Bend?
No, that's here in St. Louis.
Oh.
We'll talk about it afterwards. It might be something for you to plug in with.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get one of their guys on here soon. So
cool.
But yeah, so we got to there. Now we got the ministry of Camp Penuel, because we got that your dad started it. We got the passion that it was for those who let's call underprivileged. Yeah, I was trying to think of urban. I mean, there's a couple different categories. Yeah, at risk, urban, underprivileged kids. You grew up in the city a little bit, so I can see how you get tied into.
I was one of those kids. So
yeah,
absolutely.
And so what's it doing today? Like, how is that growing today, and how's that mission continued, and how do you guys get support? Because obviously you said free, so I imagine that's got to play in there too. Yeah. So walk us through that a little bit.
It's always been free, and one of the reasons because the children that we wanted to reach couldn't afford to come to camp anyway, and we wanted to have a 5-star camp, the best there is, and we wanted to be able to allow them to come for free and not feel like a throwaway kid, and obviously lead them to the Lord. So the same time my dad was searching for funds, he was searching for churches, especially from East St. Louis, Berkeley, all around the area. He would reach out to local churches and said, hey, round up your local kids and bring them to camp. And then the goal is when they leave camp to plant them back in the organizations that brought them. Christian Activity Center we've worked with for years, and once they leave us, that's where they come. So we don't just say, hey, here's the gospel, see ya, put you back, but we do that with support on the home front as well. So through the years, it's kind of migrated through different agencies and different churches. The churches have changed, and we've seen changes, especially since COVID too. There's less churches that we've been able to reach. So we've worked with House of God. We've worked with all
the way to Kansas, Memphis, Chicago.
So broader net, you would say a broader net of the find at-risk kids to bring.
Right. And what's interesting is a couple of our camp coordinators were kids at our camp, and they'll call us, hey, we got a group of kids, we want to get together, and we're said, bring them, we'll fit you in slots. And we get just random families that call at different times, hey, I have kids, and so we'll look where they live and connect them with the group that's coming down from that area. And so we've had a lot of great connections, and I cannot tell you any place we go in St. Louis for any type of fundraising, or even he went to the hospital and the secretary there that was checking him in said, I went to Camp Penuel. Yeah. It's just amazing the outreach that it has had, and not just for that one little one who is saved, but their lives have been able to affect other lives. So we're always looking for new avenues, always looking for new churches and organizations to work with. And obviously we're always looking for people to support the camp, because when I say we're free, and we don't take any federal government money. We don't want them involved in anything, because that always comes with strings attached. We just want to bring kids for free, and we have, by the grace of God, He's put us on the hearts of local businesses, personal, people, doctors, foundations, and that's why it's kept going, because it is the Lord's. It's not ours.
We have 3 camps too. Did you know that?
No.
We have one in Pennsylvania, in Eldred, Pennsylvania. We have one in Costa Rica, and then one in Ironton, Missouri.
The original one started in Ironton, and that's 50 years old. We used to have a donated ad in Time magazine at one point, and a businessman from Kansas City, Missouri, called my dad. He goes, I want to do what you do in Pennsylvania, but I don't want to do it. You do it. So he literally donated all the funds for all the buildings. He owned the land, and it's been running since next year will be their 30th. Yeah. And so it's all under Camp Penuel, but that's Camp Penuel East. Then we had, in 2003, we had the opportunity, we have Costa Rican folks who come and actually are missionaries at our camp in Missouri. And one of our lovely missionaries met a guy from Minnesota who was also volunteering at the camp. They met, fell in love, got married, moved to Costa Rica, called, and that one will be almost 20 years old, I guess, next year.
Wow.
Yeah, so they reach all of Central America.
Yeah.
So you guys have got about every decade, a new place opens up.
We're hoping. Yeah. She's not, but I want to see one in Guatemala. I would like to see one in our southern states somewhere like Georgia, maybe one in California in that direction, just to have northwest, southeast type.
The Lord gave both my parents a word way before East started, and he said, this isn't going to be the only one. And, you know, back then we're just like...
Hard enough.
Yeah. Okay, Lord Jesus, here we go. But he's just opened the doors, and it's been amazing to see. We were able about 6 years ago to travel to Costa Rica and see the camp in full swing. Amazing. And what a blessing, you know. It's just...
Between all three, we see about 1,200 children come to know the Lord every year. Wow. Between the three camps.
Yeah.
You imagine that? Most churches, and we pastor a church, but most churches will see 5, 10 people saved a year, and they spend thousands and thousands of dollars to do that. And we take very little in all three of our camps and are able to see that many people born again that later we see as doctors and nurses and, you know, doing things all over the world. And so that little money that people give to run Camp Penuel really is put into good soil, and God allows us to see that happen. It's amazing.
I was going to say, it sounds like you guys, I mean, apart from the people that you guys know have been found by Jesus,
yeah,
you're putting good soil down for even if there isn't a seed planted,
absolutely,
later down the road to be planted.
We teach things like self-awareness that are identity, where kids really are searching for who they are. And when they find Jesus, or they hear the gospel, or they hear a story. I remember one time we were teaching about Peter getting out of the boat, you know, and then he starts to sink and the Lord grabs him. And I'm in a canoe telling this story. Like, you know, I wanted them to connect with the idea of getting out of the boat. And as I get out of the boat, I'm doing it real slow, like I'm walking on water. And the little girl in the front row leans over and she goes, "What if you're too afraid to get out of the boat?" And I'll never forget that, because I thought, in the eyes of a child, it's exactly what Peter was going through. But yet that story allowed them to think, I can have faith in Jesus. I can step out. I can get out of my neighborhood, or I can get out of what lifestyle I'm living in right now. Many of the kids come and are still doing gang signs. They're only 10 years old, you know, or 11. And they're doing because their brothers and sisters are doing that. But they grow up in that. I relate to that. I grew up in that whole ideal. And I was doing drugs at 9 years old and breaking into houses when I was 7. I mean, it was my lifestyle. And so when I look at those kids, I don't see inner city kids. I see diamonds in the rough. I really see what God can do in the life of a child, because he did it in me, you know.
We have, obviously, all our staff are volunteers, and, you know, we get them from Costa Rica, we get them from St. Louis, from wherever God calls them to. And what I always tell them, I said, you think you're coming to, you know, touch a child's life. I said, your life will never be the same.
Yeah.
And it never is. It changes them. It changes their perspective. And, you know, if they were maybe, I don't want to use the word baby Christians, but if they were younger in the Lord, and it just really builds their faith, and they grow exponentially during just being at the camp. It's hard work. I've done it. You know, you're up in the morning and you do, you know, dishes, serve, you know, lifeguard, whatever it is you have to do. But boy, it's probably the most rewarding, awful paying job you'll ever do.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned about sponsors. How do you guys find the sponsors, and who are normally your sponsors? You mentioned like small businesses. Do you find more individuals than businesses, or do you find more churches than individuals? I was just kind of curious.
It's a mix. I would say predominantly they are probably individuals, and then obviously local businesses that have a vested interest into their community. And we do a lot of research for grants. Those are a little bit more arduous to get, but we do pursue those. Organizations up here, the Optimist Club, the Kiwanis Clubs, they all are very supportive of us, different chapters.
Cardinals.
The Cardinals, actually, I have a picture of, it used to be back in the day, the Cardinals' wives, and Stan Musial's wife was there, and you see them all in their little dresses. You know, I'm like, oh, they're at camp. They're going to hate this. but they came down, and the Cardinals, we have gotten funds from them, from the St. Louis Variety Club. So
Old Newsboys.
Old Newsboys. So we are always looking for new avenues to raise funds. We've seen the climate change from when my dad was alive, and how people give and what they give to. So we're trying to roll with he used to have these big banquets, and to be honest, nobody wants to do a banquet anymore. And so Jeremiah even said, that's an old school thing. And
bingo night.
Right.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Actually, I have to plug this. Jeremiah's daughter is sponsoring our first ever trivia night.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. October 14th here at the First Baptist Church of Arnold. They donated their little community center to do that.
They're awesome. I really love First Baptist Arnold, and good. Kenny's a great pastor there, so that's great. And then the times people might be listening going, who's Jeremiah? Jeremiah is a friend of ours, and he's the one who put me back in touch with these guys to be able to have this podcast. So, but he was actually one of the first ones I asked to critique the podcast when we first were starting out at the beginning of the year. I knew he'd done them. He did he does them with the Survivor, and he'd been big time. Yeah. And so I said, buddy, I know you know more than I ever will, and so I love your critique, so please. And so he's been giving me feedback all the time on this podcast, and a lot of my improvements have been at his direction, so I really appreciate it.
His dad, Jim, was pretty much the unofficial photographer of the camp. He was probably with the camp for the majority of those 50 years until he passed away. And
good friend of ours.
Yeah. He was a great friend of my dad's. He'd be at Christian Family Day taking pictures, and he'd get my dad in if there were famous, cool baseball players, and he'd say, let me in too. But then, of course, my dad got to go because Christian Family Day would donate a lot of Cardinal tickets that we would give to the kids that came to the camp. So, they've
been doing those Christian Family Days for a little while. We had Jim and Judy on here, and did your dad ever do them? I was trying to think about that.
Yeah,
I was thinking he did.
Yeah.
So
I remember Andy. Yeah. I remember my dad telling me, "Guess who I met?" Like, why didn't you get me a tip?
What about me?
Yeah.
I don't know how much the Pirates did it. I know he did it with the Cardinals. I don't know that the Pirates had come around to that yet in the early 90s as much.
Well, Judy was the first one, so that took them a while to catch on to everywhere else, and they started picking up the Christian Family Days, the Family Days, the Faith Days, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
She was the first one to do that.
She, I have to tell you, she gave my dad the old Busch Stadium, the green seat, and he and I and a little kiddo went down there, and it was all the food you can eat, and my dad, that's free. We're eating that. That's free. We're eating that. That's free. We're eating that. I was like, Dad, for the love of God. Yeah. He was like, it's free. It's free. So he was so excited. I can't tell you.
Same thing.
Oh, yeah, you would.
Do you know who donated those tickets? Did you ever find out about that? Because there's a story behind that.
I probably do know, but I've forgotten it.
That's okay. August Bush's divorced wife.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Came up to Judy and said, I just think what you're doing with this Christian Family Day thing is really good. And it was like I want to say 2 or 3 of it.
Yeah.
She goes, I think we need to get you. So she would go around and collect all the green seats for her.
Wow.
Wow.
She would go around and try to get as many of the green seed holders to give up their tickets for that day and give them to Judy to hand out to sponsors and the people who might not be able to go down there.
That's cool.
These ministries and stuff. And so that's how she would try to send them out to different ministries that she knew, like pastors who would never have a chance to get a green seed ticket.
Oh, yeah. He was, and I was actually watching the little kiddo who I still keep in contact with now. Of course, he has a family of his own now, but he remembers that. It was like the coolest thing to him. Between him and my dad, they had their best day ever.
It's hard not to. It's really hard. Anytime somebody's like, I got green seats, I go,
oh. Yeah.
The
green seats.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you guys, it sounds like a lot of your donations are they one-offs, or do you guys have a system where people can give monthly, or is it mostly like I'm hearing, like it's just kind of...
Well, absolutely monthly. We have a mailing list, and we send out newsletters to our current donors to kind of keep them, here's what's happening, here's what we're looking at. Foundations are a little different. They're once a year. Businesses, it depends. Some of them are monthly. Churches do also give to us. And a lot of churches up here, Grace Church of St. Louis, still give to us.
Great church.
We have a lot of our individual donors that have been giving for over 40 years that are still with us.
Yeah.
We've lost quite a few, through passing away, but they stuck with us and still do to this day. We have a lot of folks that just continue to monthly give. And so we're always looking at what's next and what we're going to do as far as the camp. And so some donors want to give just to building projects. So we're like, we don't want another building project, but we have another building project. We're always building something. We just finished a dorm that allows us to house, trying to think, 48. Okay. We're adding in each one of those, so we're going to bump it up a little bit, but that gives us about 50 more beds. We're looking at a new cafeteria, air conditioned and the whole nice, cafeteria style thing. And that's our newest thing that we're looking at building.
Drury Inn, our original 13 cabins, we renovated those. They donated all their, their heater / air conditionings for all of them. Now, back in my old school days, you put a fan in a window because I lived there too. It was a wet towel. Exactly. That's how we did it. So now they are all air conditioned. They all have heat. And since my dad passed away, we built a brand new dorm to mirror the dorm that we have. We put a swimming pool complex. We used to have a little bit of a swimming pool down, in front of the lake, and it was 3 foot. And then we built a much, much bigger one up the hill of our property, and we got another pool put in next to it by a company that was training their folks to put in pools. Oh. So they put it in for free.
That's cool.
So I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do that. I don't have to call the board and ask them that. I know what the answer is going to be. And a huge playground donated through various donors. They called, and we had one that was say, okay, I'll throw in this if you can match this. We got little tykes to take so much off, and it is
like a third of it. I mean,
wow.
So we have added and continue to grow, and we just
That's a new noise. I never heard that one.
Either that or she's talking too much.
Oh, no.
It wasn't that.
That was a new noise for us. I don't know what that was either.
That was weird.
Yeah. So, we had one donor who would call me every year and say, hey, kid, call me a kid. You're younger than my daughter.
You can call me a kid.
But, how's it going? Everything going okay? And I would say, yeah, we've done this, and this, and this. And he was just a huge supporter of us. And he's with the Lord right now, too, up there drinking coffee with my dad and Jim and all the others who have gone before them.
Yeah, they were all good friends, all three of them.
Yeah.
So a question I got, what all, you kind of started laying it out. So obviously the kids coming, they're going to hear the gospel. They got pools, got a playground.
Oh, yeah.
Got food. What else goes on?
They
have a nature trail that they can go down, and actually get in it's really a creek.
Called a shut-ins. Yeah.
It's beautiful rocks and little waterfall things they can play in. And that's just our nature trail. And we get to teach them about nature, and they'll see animals and things like that.
We have crafts.
2 pools.
Yeah, crafts, 2 pools. We have paddle boats and canoes. We have organized games.
Pool tables inside.
Yeah, pool tables, foosball tables, basketball.
And what lake is that connected to?
It's called Lake Killarney, and it's a private lake. So we own the one end of it, and then it's a private subdivision on the other end. So there's not a lot of, we don't have traffic going in and out of there, which is
really good. So they can do the kayaking and all that, and be in paddle boats and be real safe on it, and fish it, and there's still fish in there. So that's awesome.
I'd imagine that's a new experience for a lot of the kids.
Oh my gosh.
Tell them the story.
Which one? We have kids who, say, who planted all these trees or the bugs? Oh, we had
one kid said, "Are we in the jungle now?"
Yeah.
We took them out of the city. They're in the jungle.
Yeah.
They see.
Might as well be, honestly.
Yeah.
They've never been out of the city.
Absolutely. There's a spider in my cabin. That was like the apocalypse. Just so many great experiences that they have, and when you think about it, their life experience is so much different than ours. And they're like, wow. And they can't get enough. We have chapel in the morning where they sing all kinds of fun songs. We do silly skits. In the evening, we have another chapel indoors where we sing and show their video for the day. And then we have a message, right? Puppets. Oh, puppets is a big deal. And they just have such a great experience. Some of the littler folk, the littles, kind of might snooze during part of chapel because they're so tired.
That's awesome.
That's how you want it, right? You want them to have such a great time that they can't stay awake. Yeah, I love it that they.
And fishing. Fishing, big deal. And we had a kid who caught a fish about this big, and I put him on video, and he said, "I caught a bass this big," and the kid behind him was saying it was really like this.
That was funny.
That's awesome.
So. One of the things I had a question about, can groups rent the camp during off season when it's not being used by students? Do you guys allow youth groups and stuff to come in and do anything there? Just curious.
Yeah, we have, our East Camp has been doing it for quite a while, and it helps supplement the need for their finances.
Right.
And so we just started it this year. We've had one camp that's been going, a youth camp, teen camp for 3 or 5 years have been there. And these groups that come in, this year we had a new one, and then we had a weekend one, and I'm looking at another camp for next year. So I've got about 3 or 4 spots I can put them in. They all come knowing that what they rent the camp for goes towards these camps that are free for kids.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, if you have like a men's retreat that they want to get away, and they should reach out to you, because maybe they could do it during the off season, like in October or November, before the real season's needed, and be able to rent it out. And not only am I renting it out, but by renting this out, I'm helping out a ministry of that's really cool. I'm a huge believer in believers trying to use other believers for services, because I think that supporting the family first, versus someone where you don't know where the money's going to go. I mean, we see how that is in today's society. I mean, you can go buy something on Disney or Target, and you buy into the belief systems. But if you're going to rent a camp, why not rent one that is going to help support other kids being able to hear the gospel down the road? I think that's great.
Absolutely.
You can look it up. I don't know where it's at, but it's online. But 88 to 92% of our total input goes to the program.
That means no overhead. That other 8% is overhead.
Right.
Yeah.
Is insurance, which is a huge deal, which is to administrative costs. So we are very, very, very low in that. And we are very thankful for that, because we never want to be top heavy. That's why, he works 15-hour days for, 2.5 months out of the year. And then
we both work other jobs too. So that helps not, for our income. So we want to give to the camp too.
Right.
Well, speaking of the other job, we're going to have you back up here, but I think we should still put a little plug in. You just wrote something, right?
Oh, yeah. Scott missed that.
No, we're going to have to have him back up here because I told him that you love this kind of category. So what's it about, and tell us the name of it.
It's called The Antichrist, Exposing the Antichrist. And it is all of the verses that relate to, in the Bible, of the Antichrist. And so I would go through them, every one of them methodically, and specifically talk about what he's called in the Old Testament and the New Testament, and just break it down of every detail that you can possibly imagine.
So people who are into end times would love to read that book, and we're going to get you back in here because we got to talk end times sometime. That'd be a great conversation. This guy will, and you will probably talk forever while I just sit back and listen and take it all in. So, but I enjoy it all. Yeah. That's really cool. So we'll put a link on this episode. Just I know it's going to be coming out soon, so when it is, they can get it, and then we'll have you back on here to talk a little more about that. But I did want to put a little plug in there for you because along with Camp Penuel, we want everybody to do Camp Penuel. People can also support you and help you out by buying that book, and that helps also Camp Penuel because, as you said, you're not taking salaries or big paychecks from the camp, so you got to be able to support yourself in other ways. So as a former youth pastor, I know that. People ask me how do I get mortgages a lot, and I go, well, if I was paid by a church a salary, I mean, I usually didn't have a budget, so I still had to work a job to have a budget, and if I got a budget, I didn't have a salary, so I had to work a job to have a salary, and so mortgages always seem to have a home there.
His Rapture workbook, our study guide, which is about 300-400 pages, is available now on a link too. So if you're interested,
I'll check that.
It's I've learned so much just from hearing him chat while he was studying about it. So
it took me 42 lessons to teach that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's a massive study guide on Rapture.
That's
really cool. Well, we'll put, if you want, we can put that on there too. So we'll put the camp and all that on there, and we'll put a little plug for your Larry's little corner. Larry's corner.
Write books. She's writing children's books. Joy is a clinical therapist, but she is the lead. What is your definition, honey?
I've only had it for 20 years. I'm the clinical director of an inpatient treatment for traumatized children. Okay. And they get to come to the camp too. But I'm working on a series of children's books. I just stalling on the illustrator a little bit.
Our heart is that with these books we can finance the camp.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We've committed to give at least half of any type of profit straight to the camp.
I can see why he was hesitant to say your title. There's a lot of words attached. Well, I just wanted to make sure.
It's okay. I'm glad he knows what I'm doing, sort of.
No, that's really interesting because I've actually been trying to get a lady in here who is one of the foremost field experts in that. She's in her 70s, 80s. Been to Congress, done all sorts of she's helped write a lot of the guidelines on how that's handled in school districts and things like that. So she's a friend of mine, and we've been trying to. She's a kind of a quiet speaker, but I mean that's such a big deal because kids, once trauma to a young person can change the trajectory of their life forever, good or bad, right?
Absolutely. And we get kids at the camp that are, have that trauma in their life as well. And I can speak probably for hours on trauma informed, like he can speak on end times. But we had one chapel where we had a cross and we had kiddos and we helped them if they couldn't write down some things in their life, and they would put them and they would take them to the cross and give them to Jesus. And we would read those afterwards and pray over them, but just break your heart. Kids shouldn't have to deal with that at that age. And trauma, the way we work with people and children, it changed my life and changed my perspective. I won't get started about, drugging kids and labeling kids, because then we would be here all day. We'd be like that. But and seeing them give that to the Lord is just, and it's heart-wrenching to see what some of them have gone through and what they've given to the Lord.
It's amazing. I would give my testimony and how I grew up and things, but I tell it in third person, and then at the end I'd say that little boy was me, and they would think it coming out of the projects, and my dad getting shot, my mom dying of cancer, all these other things happening, being abused as a kid. They didn't think me, and when I said that little boy is me, there's shock on their face, but they relate at that point. I've had kids come up and put their arm on me and say, "I'm so sorry that you lost your mom and your dad," and or they'd say, "I lost my mom too, or my dad, and would you pray for me?" And it becomes just a way of reaching kids that honestly nobody's going to reach in these inner cities. Some of them might get touched by local churches or by family or grandma bring them to church. Thank God for that. But there are some kids who, when you tell these stories about Jesus and people being healed and this happening and that happening, and their eyes are just wide open, I'm like, this is a true story, by the way. This is not a thing you see on TV. This is real. This actually happened. So they get.
Well, I think it happens. They forget too. It also happens to real people. I mean, hearing you say that reminds me of an episode we did a while back with R.A. Dickey, the knuckleball pitcher. Have you heard about him? Oh, I'm not going to give it away because we could talk about that too. But yeah, people should just check it out. It's one of our past episodes. I happened to be blessed to go to a breakfast, and he shared his testimony, got it on tape, and put it out there. And it's a very similar story of growing up and changing the trajectory of his life. Yeah. And he almost committed suicide.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, God, people kind of look up to a guy like that and go, "Oh, he's a successful baseball player," but they forget that those guys, and that trauma sticks with them unaddressed. And for him, it was going to a psychologist and a Christian counselor and working through it. Mm-hmm. But having somebody to help you walk through that is so important.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, real good stuff. And by the power of God's grace, good things can come out of it.
Amen.
Absolutely.
We've all seen it. I mean, we saw that with our episode with Vondina.
Not can come out of it.
Yeah.
Will come out.
Will come out of it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So, but yeah, we've one of the beautiful things of having this podcast has been able to hear great stories about people who've overcome things that I just could never even imagine in my background, and hearing how God has used that to make them who they are today, and to do the things that they're doing that are just beyond them. For Larry, it's being the director of a camp, right?
Absolutely.
So, coming out of the inner city with all that you've come, and now you get to full circle. You get to use all that experience and that background to love on kids and help them with that same background.
I'm blessed, man. I am. I'm blessed.
Yeah. Well, was there anything that we missed on Camp Penuel and what's going on there? Anything that we need to make sure we cover?
Other than if you would like to support the camp, we would love you to support the camp. Know that our donors are the reason we're able to do what we do. And I thank them every time because they're the ones that are making it us able to win souls. They're right there with us. And I know you're going to put up the links for that.
Absolutely. We're going to put up the links on there. We'll even, throughout this episode, we'll have it probably shown a few times throughout the episode so they will see it. By the time they get to this point, they hopefully have seen it a few times and can get over to the website. But if not, it'll be in the drop down to the show notes, and they can definitely click and give and help support the ministry. And I'd also say, I know we got a lot of ministry people who listen in. Hey, if you're looking at doing a kids retreat during the middle, one of those freezing cold winter retreats for winter break, or you're looking at doing something throughout the year that maybe not tied to during the summer when they have their camps going on, reach out and give them a call, because another great way to help support the camp and help your own youth group or your own
heaters
men's
now,
group.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and
they got heaters.
We have heaters.
It's not too cold.
The new dorm is fully heated, fully cold. It's really
And if they have children that they have an outreach in their own area and would like them to come to camp for free, same thing. Give us a call. We will make it work.
Yeah, so if you're a pastor of a church and you've got underprivileged kids that could really use going to camp, not even really use it, we know they can.
Yeah.
Give them a call. You guys are always scouting out for new youth to get in there, new kids to get in there to be loved on. So that's awesome. I love that.
Yes.
So I love that. That's as soon as I start talking about renting out the camp, your mind goes, but we need kids. We want kids who desire to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
God has a heart for them.
That's the mission. And my mom, what she said is, what the Lord started will last. I think that's in Ecclesiastes. I'm not sure where. He would know. I would.
He'll finish the work.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Scott, anything from you before I close it up?
No, I loved it all. You guys keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And support these guys. Very genuine. Nothing that they're talking about is a facade. So,
And we appreciate you guys having us here. This is awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
And, any way we can reach new kids, new donors, we're just, it was.
Well, we're going to have you both back on here, and both Larry and Joy. We're going to get you guys on here. We're going to have some more continued discussions. Going to have to get you on here. But now that I know that you're a clinical, we're going to have to get you on here because I'm
a trainer too, by the way, in the subject. So.
Well, that's great because, I mean, if I can't get this other guy, especially, that's one of the things I've really wanted to address sometime in the near future because it's such, I believe, a critical thing in ministry that is forgotten.
It is.
And needs to be brought more and more towards the forefront because a lot of the people we see in the Bible, Jesus reached out were just those.
The hurt,
right?
Exactly.
The hurt, the broken. They came from crazy stories. Lord, stop my bleeding. Lord, the outcast. The leper.
Mm-hmm.
These were people who had physical, sometimes emotional damage.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who's watched The Chosen, they saw some of their interpretation of that, but not that that Matthew necessarily was that way. But the fact is they were trying to show that these people were real, dealing with real issues, real life stuff, and I think that there's something to that humanity that we forget sometimes when we read the scripture. These were real people that were just like us.
Absolutely.
Dealing with real problems, kids that weren't listening to them, and wives sometimes who disagreed with maybe what they were doing. And that's one of the things I do love about watching that show is the human side of the different characters, not just Jesus, but the characters that were around him. And we need to be able to reach out to those kind of people every day.
Absolutely.
So, all right, guys. Well, you know what to do. Make sure you support the camp. We appreciate having both Larry and Joy here today. And what a great testimony of what God's doing in the camp 50 years later. Mm-hmm. So as you probably saw on the logo behind us, 50 years and growing and going. And it started with one camp. We're up to 3 camps. We need enough people to support that they can do a 4th or 5th. You mentioned Guatemala. We'll have to talk later. So, all right, guys. Well, with that, we'll catch you next episode. And thanks again for listening in.
Thank you.
You're safe.